All right, here we go, starting with Access, which is a database program. Now, you've sort of been working with data, right? You've been putting it in Excel tables. Why should we need Access? We can just fill Excel with all our data. And actually, some people do that. Excel can be very useful for building huge tables of data, nicely organized, multiple worksheets. But Access, like a database program, there are huge programs out there. Access is like the junior version of databases. It's like the customer example of working with a database where big databases out there like the one Google uses or like the one Zillow uses for putting the information in about houses, or the one eBay uses, or Amazon. They have huge databases holding information. Information is the big item out there on the internet. Every website full of information that they want you to see. Social networking has information about all the people connecting, all their messages. Where do you think they're storing that? In random places and files? Oh, they're storing it in a database. One way to think about a database, it's just an organized storage of whatever information you want. And the reason it's organized storage is so when I need to find out what to spam you in emails, when I know you're interested in snow in Iowa, or you're having snow in Iowa, and I know you're from the south, I'm going to spam you with advertisements about coats or warm weather or cold weather clothing. Or I see you visited that one website about cameras 2 weeks ago. I'm going to look in my database whenever you come to my site and say, oh, do we have anything about camera ads that we can send to your page? That's why you're seeing those ads based on where you've been. Wherever you've been is in somebody's database. Yeah?
You think they're like listening?
Well, your phones are listening, right? If you say, hey, Google, okay, Google, it's listening for that. Now, they say it's only listening for the keyword. But it's listening for the keywords. It can be, I doubt it's keeping track of what you've said until it hears a keyword and then listens more carefully. But yeah, your microphone's on.
You give up so much information anyway, they don't need
Yeah.
all of it.
Alexa is always listening for that keyword, right? And you say Alexa, and then it obeys you. Now, if you ask Alexa, are you listening? I think that somebody did this once. I found this site. If you ask Alexa, are you tracking me or something, she'll try to calm you down. No, we don't track anything. So, or Siri, you can ask Siri that same question. Somebody said they asked it and Siri wouldn't answer the question. But I asked it and it did answer. But yeah, in the age of information, with a huge amount of storage out there, they could listen to every word you say, convert it to text, and save it if they really wanted to, or if you had that software on your phone or any device nearby. So you don't have any privacy in this life unless you're living out in the woods off the grid. They know at least where you visited, even if all you've done is everything you've sent has been encrypted both directions. You see that happening in China. They know where people are going, and missionaries in hostile areas have to be super careful. Even if everything's encrypted, they know where you're visiting. And so you even are careful to visit the server, not the Emmaus website, but you'll visit a server in a major city like Beijing, and then from Beijing maybe to go to another major city, because everyone goes to that major city. But if you directly connect to some little Dubuque, Emmaus Bible College site, they'll know who you're communicating with. So missionaries especially have to be careful about all that. So every website has a database behind it. People are going to sell you software that processes information. the software is kept in databases. So for you to at least know a little bit about databases, to get a taste of what can be done in organizing things, I'd say it's a step above Excel in the organizing and the structure of the data. Where in Excel you can have titles and your little tables here and there. In Access, everything is based on very strict, very structured tables. So let's get started with Access and just see what we're doing. We're going to be building a small little database having to do with I think it's a veterinary company or as a treatment. And we're going to keep track of owners and patients. And the patients are our little pets, cats and dogs. So we're taking care of animals. We're a member of the PETA. Protect these precious little animals. So first thing we do, let's start up Access. I just type Access. If I don't see the Access app show up when I start typing Access, it's likely you don't have Access installed on your PC. Office 365 is the version that we're using. Sadly, Office 365 for Macs does not have the Access part. I start up Access, and we're going to start with a blank database, but be super careful because Access is not like any other program. When I start a blank database, double click. Oh, I clicked too many times. Let me show you that again. I clicked too many times. What Access? There. If I click again, it's going to create a file immediately in my Documents folder called Database 2. With Access, we do not want to, well, we want to control where that file goes before I do anything, because Access immediately creates a database and sends you inside of it. So before we click Create, which I just did accidentally because my mouse was in the wrong place, we want to browse to where we want to keep our database that we're going to be building. I'm going to browse to my Section 2 folder over there on my special drive, down in my users, AT Manning, Documents, cs101, Fall, Section 2. I'm going to create this database and call it Smart AC1. It's Smart Access Project 1. Before I do anything, before I even start the database, I need to tell it where to create that database. If you have already clicked on it, you can either close. There is a way that you can do a save as from inside of Access. Remember all those other programs, you start it up, start doing stuff, and then say, oh, I'm going to save this somewhere. With Access, it creates a database as soon as you click Create, and it puts you inside of it. Think of Access as a collection of different kinds of things inside of the database. So I click Create now. There it shows me the path where my file is going to be. Now when I click Create, it pops me inside of Access into a empty table. It starts you in a table because this is the foundation of every database. The tables, and multiple tables, contain the data structured very carefully that we're going to be organizing as we build and store information about owners of their pets, and we're going to have another table of patients. They're going to be the pets that are going to be coming for treatment at our veterinary services. So we've already created the database, and I can always do a file save as, but let's go ahead and figure out what these tables are about. Since we're in a table, it likes to take us right to the Fields tab. And as I click on different columns in my table that only has one existing column, I see that my field has a data type auto number, and some of these other things are grayed out, meaning I can't apply that particular feature to this column because of what type of data it is. We're going to be changing some of these things as we go. First thing we decide in our table is I don't want that first column to be named ID. I want it to be called owner ID. And just like you have a student ID in your school database, we're going to have an owner ID in our what's going to become our owners table. And as we go through this, we'll learn about what in the world is this all about. So we're going to be creating a name for our column of data. In our table, the top gray is the header field, is the name of the data in that column. Just like we had in our budget table, we had a column heading. In Access database tables, we have a title for that column. It's called a field name or just the header. We don't want that to be called ID. We'd like to change the name of this from ID to owner ID. So how do we do that? Easiest way, just double click on the top gray and we can retype owner ID. Be very careful in your spelling, so as we work on other things, it's going to be referring to this. And if we have it spelled wrong, all our other references are going to be wrong. So change that name to owner ID. This is a very important field that we want to be careful with. Now if I hit enter, it's done changing that. It wants to take me to the next column. No, I don't want to do that yet. I come back and click on that column, and I want to change the data type from this column from something that Access is automatically numbering, which is a fine thing for a lot of tables. I like the auto number, but we want to be able to enter that owner ID. So instead of data type auto number, let's choose the data type pull down, and we're going to choose a very general data type called short text. But while we're here, we see that there is many data types that I can assign to this column of data. Long text means it can just be very long, like a memo. A number, well, that would be like the number of pets that the owner has or something. I can keep track of very large numbers. I can keep track of dates in this column. Or if I want to treat it as dollars in 2 decimal places with a dollar in front of it, or dollar symbol, I can call it currency. It's more than just the formatting that we saw in Excel. Whatever data type we choose, Access will only allow that kind of data to be entered in anything in that column as we start entering data into our table. So we're going to change this from auto number to short text. Short text is like a very general type of data. Anything can be typed there. And we want to limit how long this owner ID can be. Right now, the default limit for anything short text is 255 characters. We don't need nearly that much space for an owner ID. And we actually want to limit the owner ID to 9 characters or 5 characters or less. So I change my field size to 5. Remember, since tables are the foundation of databases, we want to have very careful control of what can be put in each column. So what we're doing is we are defining the structure of this table that's going to be storing important information about owners. And this field is very special. This is the only one that we click as unique. And that's something that we'll learn more about, because we want to be sure that someone doesn't accidentally try to type the same owner ID as they enter data. That would be a really bad thing, because then databases will blow up finding 2 things that have the same owner ID. They wouldn't know who they're referring to. So it's a very important, they call it the key field in a table. Now that we have owner ID in there, we'll be playing more with this. Let's do one more thing. As we list this and view it in a table, it's going to be fairly short, only 5 characters or less. The title showing, the caption showing here, we'd like to make that shorter. So let's go up to name and caption on owner ID. And let's change his caption to just O_ID. just so we can maybe make that column a little narrower without losing track of the caption. And also let's add a description, a unique number, or actually a unique designation for every owner. That will simply be a comment that will show up in my table. Comment for that column. And I click OK. And now I see the caption is a little shorter. I can double click or drag and adjust that column width as I view the information in my table. Now we're ready to add a few more columns to our table that's going to keep track of owners that I will be entering in the rows down below. So make sure we're not entering new data here in this white or second row. We are changing the title of every column for each row. And we're adding multiple things. We're going to also have another short text. I'm going to change what's going to go in this column. I'm going to add a short text, and immediately it pops you into what do you want to name this. It selects that because we want to name that owner first name. Owner space first space name. Now in databases that I use, I don't like spaces in my names. So I'm going to, but here they do have spaces in the name. Now, once you hit enter, it likes to send you to the next column. But we want to come back to this column because we're not done with it. I wish it would just keep me on that column and select it. But the way Access works, once you name it, it'll send you over to add more. Before going to add more, I want to click on this guy again and change his field size from the default 255 to a field size of 50. We want to limit the owner first name to 50 characters or less. So we're establishing some control and organization over the structure of our table. And it's short text, which is pretty, that allows you to type any mixture of characters. Now I can come over to this one. And this is going to be another short text. All of them are going to be short text unless we come back later and decide to change them. This is going to be called owner last name. And I can always double click on the border to auto fit that name so I can see the full name. I'm doing it for you so you can verify. I can always come back and click on a column, and if I forgot to do the field size, I can adjust the field size. Oh, and I want to make sure his field size is also 50. I can adjust the width of the columns. If I have a typo in the name, I can just double click on the name and edit that name. Double click, I can always edit the title of that column. Notice I'm not doing any entering of information about owners yet. I'm establishing what each column of information I need to enter for the records of each owner. Each row is a record in my table. Now let's add another one. This one's going to be owner street address. Owner street address. I can, let's see if I hit tab, what happens. Hit tab, and then come back, and oh, for some reason, I actually got long text. That was supposed to be short text. I can come over here, change that to short text. The field size should be 255. We're going to allow very long street addresses. So we'll go with the default 255 for some reason. That seems to be a little long, but that's what they have in the book. And then I'll go to the next short text. Give him his name. That's going to be owner city. Hitting enter, coming back to it to adjust its field size back down to 50. We're not going to allow super long city names. If I ever decide, I don't want them to enter information in the record without filling in the first name or last name, I can choose to make a field required. That won't let them enter another record until they fill that in. But we're not worrying about required yet. We'll come back to those kind of settings later. We're just entering heading names, and then we're going to put in a couple owners as sample data. So we've got owner city, and guess what comes after owner city? That would be owner state. Now we do know, let's see, I have to id and enter first, then come back to it. We do know that we want to require just the 2-letter state abbreviation. So we're going to change this field size for this one all the way down to 2. So whenever we enter records for owners and their state, I can never type more than 2 characters. Doesn't mean I might type the wrong characters that give them the wrong state or give them a non-existent state, but it'll guarantee that they cannot enter more than 2 letters into data in that column. So it's not just formatting, it's what is allowed to be entered when I start entering data, entering owner information. So state, and then comes another short text, zip code. They want to call it owner postal code. Now I don't really like these names they're giving it. Since I'm going to be calling this table owners, I don't need to tell it, oh yeah, every field is an owner, because the table is going to be called owners. But we're just learning how to name things nicely. Now just to make this readable to you, I'm going to double click on the, actually I have to enter first. I'm going to double click on the border just so you see the full title. Oops, I accidentally, there, double click. I'm going to double click on each one. Oops, on the border to auto fit it, auto fit, and auto fit. And I could also grab a slider and go left and right in my table. I'm going to go a little to the right, leave those visible to you. Oh, did we set a length? Oh, postal code. We want to make its maximum size to be 9 digits. We're allowing it short text. We're not forcing it to be a number because Canada has letters in their postal code, and other countries as well. I can always go back and click on the columns, confirm the field size allowed when I decide to enter records. Postal code, after postal code comes just a few more things. We want to keep track of their home phone number. So we're going to type, instead of owner home phone, we're typing home phone. Hit enter, come back to it, and limit the size to 25 characters. Later on, we're going to learn that we can actually require a valid phone. We could require at least 7 digits, or we could require at least 10 digits to make sure they have area code. Now one more, we're going to add mobile phone. I'll click to add, oh, short, it's going to be short text. Now the name of it's going to be mobile phone. Enter, come back and click on it, change its size to 25. Short text is the easiest one to work with. So for our first table, we're making all these short text. And our last field in the records that are going to be about our owners of pets is another short text. Its name is going to be email address. Email address. Hit enter, come back, and choose a field size of 50. A lot of things I can do with this here. Suppose I know that most of the people I'm working with are going to be from Iowa. I could set a default value of Iowa, so it would automatically have that filled in before I came to enter data about owners. Now before I go any further, now that I have adjusted the structure of my table, I want to save this. I can do Control S or click on the little disk icon to save my table. We're saving the table inside of the database. We're not making a new file. We're saving it as a table inside of Smart AC1. So the table name I'm going to give to this is owners, plural. And I click, and now I see the owners now shows the name of that table. I am viewing the data in my owners table. This is called Datasheet View. There are two general ways to view a table. One is Datasheet View. You see the data and you see the different columns. And I see it organized like an Excel spreadsheet. But suppose I want to focus more on that structure with a little more detail. I can go over here and click in the upper left corner on that triangle pencil ruler. If I click on the arrow down, it'll show me that the triangle pencil ruler is called Design View. I am currently viewing what they call Datasheet View. I'm going to switch to Design View by clicking on the triangle pencil ruler. And here I can see, I'm going to double click the tab so I can see a little bit more. Here I can see that each field, as I click on it, it shows me the field size and a lot more things like the default value. There's a validation rule I can require. Lots of other fancy schmancy things down here in the field properties as I click on each row up here. And I can verify, yes, it has the correct length of the field size set on each one of those. I like Design View because I can get down into the details of each column of data. I can always go back to Datasheet View by clicking up here, and I'm viewing the table as well as the data inside my table. And I'm going to collapse the navigator pane as I now get ready to enter information of two owners that are going to be in our database. The two owners are given in a table down a little further here. Where did they go? I lost them. Where's my owners table? Add right here we go. We're going to add records to the table. They have given us information about two owners that we would like to enter into our table. And figure 117. We're going to be entering this information. If I had it in a text file, there is actually a way for me to import all these owners. That's something good to know, but we're not going to have you worry about it yet. But if we had a million pieces of inventory, definitely don't want to be typing in. There better be a way to import. And Access does allow imports. But for now, we're just going to type the values in. And here is our first owner. Now when I start typing on the record field that has a little star next to it, what that little star means is if you start typing here, I'm going to start a new record. And the first owner is capital O-1. That's our ID for our first owner. Somebody made up what they're going to call the ID. And look, remember how we made this field 5, limit of 5? If I start typing more, A, B, C, D, E. Oh, see how it doesn't let me type beyond 5 characters? That's what that field size is for. It keeps you from typing more than 5 characters. Now the A, B are still wrong. I want that just to be O-1. But it keeps me from typing too many characters. Owner first name is going to be Ted. Doesn't worry about spell checking. Last name is Sabus. Street address, we'll make up a street address. In the book they have 460 West Pioneer Road. Tab to the next one. The city is going to be Dolores. And the state is CO. If I try to type any more than 2 characters, it ignores them because of that field width that I specified. It'll let me leave without filling it, but it won't let me go beyond 2 characters. I could enter a 1 character state if there were one. Postal code is going to be 81323. the home phone, we're just making up a number. I'm going to use the same one from the book just to be consistent. 231-4411. Mobile phone, making up a mobile number, 719-888-775. Tabbing automatically takes me to the last column, or the next column in the order, which happens to be the last one. His email is going to be tsabas@cengage, cengage.com. I'm going to expand that so you can see the full text. But first I have to enter it. Then I'll slide over to that field, double click on the border so you can see everything in there. So what I have now is one record in my owners table. Because I have adjusted the column width, when I do a save, it will save that adjustment to my table columns. Now let's see, I guess I don't need to have that one so wide. I'm going to try to see if I can fit this on one page so you can see all the numbers as I type them rather than have to scroll back and forth. I can shrink the size of that state definitely. And I can shrink the last name and first name. And then I have everything fitting on one page. Now if I want to start another owner, or if I have any errors in there, it's just like Excel, I can come click on a entry and edit it if I need to make any correction. Click on another one, I can edit it to make any correction. So the data in the tables you can perfectly edit without any problem. Now let's enter a new owner, a second owner, by first entering the OID. If I forget to enter the OID, it will complain because that's a very special column. Being a primary key, it can't be left blank. So I'm going to make this O-2. This person is named Stephen Nguyen, G-U-Y-E-N, and they live at 9874 South Main Street. Yeah, they spelled it out. Tab to go to the next column. The city is Blanding. State in this case is Utah, UT, and 49435 991 5670.
Yes, you were typing, but
Oh, wait a minute. What am I doing? I forgot to put in the postal code. 84511. I skipped the postal code. Now the phone number, 425. I was reading the book, not paying attention where it was on the table. 5670. Now tabbing mobile phone, 435 777 6219. Now it will let me type more because it gave me room for 25 characters in the phone, and it doesn't care whether they're letters or numbers, but I'm going to stop at the letters. If I wanted to be super careful with my database, I would have every step of the way, I'd be validating that they are typing in a valid phone number. You'll see this when you visit certain websites. It won't let you type something invalid, like put a phone number where there's supposed to be a text. With Access, it's up to us, as we do this ourselves, to add validation rules. And his email, first initial, last name, all lowercase. And he's also a Cengage employee. So 2 records now exist in my owners table. I can close this. It's not going to ask me, oh, I did make an adjustment, so it'll ask me to save. If I ever want to see what's in there, double click over in the navigation. I can open back up the owners table. And here I'll just show you. If I make a change here, if I close this database, it doesn't, or table, I'm closing the table in the database, it doesn't ask me, do you want to save changes? As soon as you make changes in what you see in a table, those changes are saved or are kept in the database. There is an undo though. So if you type something and something goes wrong, you get a nasty message from Access. The undo is your friend. Control Z, or come click on the undo delete, because that's what I had just done. So you can undo your typing and other things. But sometimes when you go to delete something, it'll give you a big warning. Are you sure you want to do this? Because that particular activity cannot be undone. So now I have my data in my table. Watch, since I haven't adjusted my columns, I can close that. See how he didn't say, do you want to save changes? Just made the change immediately into my owner table. So now we have the owner table, or the owners table, filled with some sample data. I can browse that owners table. Now imagine if I had 1 million pieces of inventory in my huge store. I could have that on a spreadsheet, on an Excel spreadsheet, have a lot of fun with it, find ways to find things, and I'd probably get pretty good at it. But the databases already have that stuff built in. They're a very powerful way of retrieving data from some storage. That's why they're used everywhere. The smart programmers have built database systems for the purpose of not only storing data, but retrieving it very quickly, and retrieving it based on likely search criteria. Now you're going to be learning how to write a few search criteria problems, but there's a ton more in there that someone working with databases would do a lot more with. So we're just getting a taste of databases by playing with Access. So now I have a owners table. If I want to look at design view, what's in there, I just click on the triangle and pencil, and I can see the owner ID has a little key next to it. That's the part about it needing to be unique. As I click on these, I see the field size is also showing up in the properties down below. If I have a lot of columns, I will often use this technique because I can copy the names, what I just had selected, and verify that it has the field size. I just noticed on owner street address, I forgot to adjust the field size. I can adjust that here in design view, and that was supposed to be, oh no, we did have the field size of 255. Now I remember. Field size we did allow, it seems like awful larger than it needs to be, but now I remember, yes, field size of 255 is allowed on the street address. But anything else, if I click on the table, I should see the field size correctly reflecting what I had set up in Datasheet View. So I like Design View because it lets me view everything in their structure without being possibly confused by this little guy and this little guy letting you change things in my table. But I have to click on each column to see the settings. Remember what I'm doing? I'm changing the structure, and then I enter data that matches that structure. Watch what happens if I try to enter the same owner ID. Doesn't complain yet, but when I click on a different record, it'll say, uh-oh, we've got a problem. Now, often this error message is very meaningless or even condescending. You got to get over that. They are trying to help you, but they don't know how to write, except for geek speak. The changes you requested to the table were not successful because it would create duplicate values in the index, primary key, or relationship. Well, why don't you just tell me it would create a duplicate in the owner ID field? You could have said something like, please enter a unique owner ID. Well, they can't write that way. They have to make it sound really hard. I can click OK. Now I can do an undo, Control Z, or I could come back and manually correct it. Undo is your friend, Control Z is your friend. If something goes wrong and you get a scary message, you might want to read that message Because sometimes, even though it sounds really hard, sometimes you get a clue from it what they actually mean. So now what you've done, you've built your first table in an Access database. Now if I close this table, saving my changes because I had adjusted some titles of things. Now whenever I want to see what's in the data, I open the database, and then inside the database I can double click and see the data inside that table. So get familiar with the ribbons we looked at. We had the Home tab. I can click that to see Datasheet View. Once I'm viewing a table, I can adjust what shows up on my ribbon up there by selecting from here any activity or editing the data itself. So we'll stop there. You're welcome to enter more owners, but they're going to be giving us owners. And as we have a lot of information, Access does allow us to import data using external data imports. Just like we imported data up to our Google worksheet, we can import data into our databases, but we have to figure out where do we put it. Where should the data go? In what column should the data go into? All right, so we'll stop here. Save that. You have a backup to your OneDrive, your Google Drive, your Jump Drive, your Flash Drive, and you're ready to have a nice, cool weekend. See you around.